that point in my life, the last thing I needed or wanted was to start a restaurant. But, you know, we were literally went through the eye of Katrina and our entire town was flattened. I mean, there was nothing left in the houses. The few that were left, were pretty much more than 80% destroyed. So it was just this crazy rebuilding effort. And we decided to stay, uh, and do whatever we could to, lend our talents and our resources that we were blessed to have, and be part of the team to build back. And just kind of along the way, you could see how people were just drained emotionally and mentally. And, folks had lost hope, and they just couldn't see the other side. Most people couldn't see the other side. And one of the things that I started to notice is that all of the gathering spots were decimated, right? There were no restaurants, there were no parks, there were no clubs. I say clubs like, reading clubs, and a place for people to come together and connect emotionally. And it started to show its wear and tear on our entire community. And so we just came up with this crazy idea. It's like, let's open a waterfront restaurant. And this sole intention was to bring hope back to the town and give people their spirits back, give them their spirits back. Yeah, make them feel loved, make them feel great about themselves. And so we did that. And we never really built the business model around a profit core. It was just, this is what we're going to do to help bring us all back. Our sanity. Let's bring our sanity back. And so it worked very, very well. It was very, very successful. In fact, the restaurant we did 5 times the amount of revenue that I projected.
Wow.
And we just, fast forward 20 years, we've kept that same mission, and it's to let's have a restaurant that brings sanity to people in a messy world, right? And so we kind of focus on that. We focus on our guests. Yeah, anyone in our restaurant can tell you that the mission is when someone walks through that door, all right, by the time they leave, they need to feel happier and better about themselves than when they came in. And so it's just an example of putting your focus on something that really matters versus just making a profit, how wonderfully successful you can become. And our brand is such a strong brand because of the credibility we have with our employees and with our guests.
And so you would have been faced with all these different elements. And I know you've spoken to this in the past of just really challenges and adversity in that moment. But again, fast forward 20 years later, I am curious, did you bring any of those lessons that you've learned during that time into the way you still continue to manage the business today?
What we learned is that if you focus on making a profit, making money, then you're going to lose focus on how you make money and how you make a profit. And we just kind of flipped the script and said, let's focus on what we need to do, right? And that is let's make sure that we take care of our employees, all right? And that was kind of the first. If you look at our culture, the core of it is our employees. And I know a lot of businesses and companies claim to take care of their employees, but we have proof of that. All right. Um, I come from a professional services background. That's how we run the company, and we take care of our guests and our employees. And if I want an employee to, if I want, excuse me, if I want a guest to visit us and walk away happier than when they came through that door, there's only one way to do that is have an employee who's also happy, right? Because if he's disgruntled, we can never reach our goal. So we have to make them happy. And I'm pretty proud that, in the restaurant industry, the average tenure for a restaurant employee is 75 days. For us, our full time staff, the average tenure is 3 years. So we put together something pretty special to keep them engaged and happy, and if you can crack that, if you can get your employees, then some of the other stuff just kind of takes care of itself, and that's allowed us. So that's all we focus on, and if we can get that, then the profits and the monetary rewards are going to come.
Certainly the model that you have in place is really different. I would say, especially for the restaurant industry, it tends to be one where I think a lot of us think of smallest margins, so the lowest salaries. And you've really, I think it's more well-rounded than just compensation. And we can definitely speak to that in a moment. But I think just purely from a compensation standpoint, if we have listeners who are tuning in and maybe they are in the restaurant industry and they're trying to think of how do I have a sustainable company and then still offer reasonable and I think fair wages to staff. How have you navigated that to make sure that it remains a sustainable company as well financially?
We re-engineered how we service our guests, and we got we got to that point of our success by getting our people to understand first and then buy into change. And it was like it's like brainwashing everyone, right? If you look at the restaurant industry and perhaps in any industry, the people are conditioned to believe that the way it's always been done is the only way, right? And we took a look at this, from adopting and implementing, leading edge technology and different approaches to how many steps we need to take, literal steps, right? And how much time are we wasting? And we ended up, we had our window after COVID. I've been wanting to do this for years, but just the timing was never right. But we did a major overhaul and turned our service model into a team service model. And we had an uproar, right? We had half of our staff quit, and we turned it from an individual fragmented service model to a unified team model. And it didn't take long for them to figure out that we were doing a lot more with a lot less people, and they all were making more money, right? We were making our guests happier because now we were paying more attention to them. And it just kind of evolved. And today, um, in my book, we just released a book, and in the book, one of the things that I point out is that, and I'm just going from memory here, but when we opened 17 years ago, a cheeseburger was $10. Today it's $14. So the cheeseburger's gone up 40%. But beef has gone up 250%. Well, the only way for us to overcompensate that, we got to do two things: become much, much more efficient and or raise your prices. If you can't become more efficient, then we need a $25 cheeseburger. And so we've spent a lot of time on the back end of the service and delivery and how we can increase things and make things more efficient. And the biggest move we made was the team service model. And it's tough for most in the restaurant industry to accept that, but we've built a culture of it's not a gypsy culture where you just pop in and work enough to buy beer that night, and then when you get tired, you move on. We're bringing people in who want a career, and we're providing insurance and a 401k, and we're doing the things to keep people engaged. And if you can keep someone past 75 days, if you can keep them for a year, now instead of needing 10 people to do a job, you only need 6 because they become so proficient and so loyal and engaged and proud that you just become across the board more efficient.